I don't know about you all, but I worked 10,000 times harder this year than I ever have.
It's kind of like capture the flag, but you use we use gator skin balls.
Grids, hoops, and poly spots come to mind. That's the way, those are going to be just super important for a ton of activities.
I guess I was thinking that we weren't going to be able to like touch equipment that somebody else did unless it was a jump rope and then between classes we clean it. Is that not what you guys are getting at your state? But I love this group. I will definitely plan to be back next time you have it, and I'll try to bring my teaching partner with me.
You guys rocked this today.
Welcome, physical educators. This is Thinking PE.
Because Phi-Ed is more than just fun and games.
I'm Stacy Nelson.
And I'm Jamie Seneca.
And it's our goal to dig deeper beyond the activities that make your class awesome.
So buckle up and join us on this journey.
Welcome to another episode of Thinking PE. Jamie, you know what I was thinking? I'm thinking hashtag 6 feet PE. I don't know why I'm thinking about that so much, but I'm kind of bringing me back to this idea of we're going to be 6 feet apart, many of us throughout this nation, when we're trying to teach PE. And we've gotten together with some teachers and trying to discuss what in the world does that mean. So I don't know, are you thinking 6 feet PE at all, or?
Absolutely. The whole idea of teaching physical education while respecting social distancing is it's really been on my mind just through the initial conversations that we have. And what I've really grown to appreciate was that growth mindset that we found other people that share, in that you take this thing 6 feet PE that sounds, it can't be done. How are we going to do it? And just to start to hear some of the ideas flow. And it's been really, really encouraging.
Yeah, it sure has. This group is starting to kind of form its own life. And it's very inviting. So I'm hoping anybody that's listening to this feels free to join us when we do these. Well, we're going to do one more on Thursday, the last Thursday in June. We'll probably take July off, but then I got a feeling everybody's going to be looking for ideas come August. So plan on looking for us out on Facebook or Twitter. We'll put it out there. Let you know when we're going to go live, and we'll do these recordings. And we'd love to have more people join in from all over the world if we could.
You know, and I think we kind of got a jump start on just the ideas and just thinking about it. And we know that this information is going to be coming, but there is so much uncertainty still out there. I mean, we know we're going to be teaching in the fall, but I think you said there's 3 possible scenarios that they might look like. What were those scenarios?
Well, in Minnesota, they're telling us to prepare for regular, as if COVID didn't happen. Be prepared for a modified, like we've been talking, 6 feet, PE, and be ready to go complete distance learning. If there's another huge outbreak, they might quarantine us all and have to go backwards, so to speak. So we're supposed to prepare. This is in Minnesota. We're preparing for all 3 of those. And then the Minnesota Department of Education, I believe, has said they're going to try to release what the actual guidelines are going to be for us on July 31st. So we'll have the month of August to kind of prepare for that. But that's just Minnesota. Other people could be ahead or behind that. And I mean, people are listening to this podcast all over the world. So it's just so much up in the air as you're listening to this podcast, just so you have an idea of, we're just in the middle of total limbo right now.
And what's really been cool just through our experience with the people we've been talking to is I've been able to take so much away from it that I'll be able to use no matter what those, a lot of activities, a lot of games, a lot of ways to adapt things. Yeah. And just good teaching practice, being able to adapt and differentiate for students in general, that it won't matter the setting. So it's just been cool. Just some mind-blowing opportunities.
Yeah. Well, and Jamie, that kind of leads us into this first clip that we're going to have from last Thursday. I don't remember the date, was June 18th, I think it was, that we recorded this. And we started the podcast by just asking, what do people have you learned from these meetings so far? And you and I kind of brought forth a few ideas, and some other people here gave some really good insights. So let's take a listen to that right now. I would like to take a minute or two here to kind of go back over the past few discussions, either for those that weren't part of them or for those of us that have it, kind of get our brains in that gear again. Whenever I go to a conference, I kind of like to come home with like one nugget. I don't know about you, but it's, my brain is blown. Like these last conversations, my head was spinning, and I thought, oh, we had a ton of good ideas, but I want one or two that I can bring back to my classroom. And I'm just going to share a couple of those from the past. And then if this strikes any ideas with you, I'd like to hear more people, what you've gained, either from the podcast of the last few weeks or otherwise. One of the things I keep hearing the last few podcasts was grids. Grids, hoops, and poly spots come to mind. That's the way, those are going to be just super important for a ton of activities. I'm going to add those in, make sure those are cleaned up and ready to go, just to help with teaching that distancing and that teaching kids what 6 feet means and that type of a thing. And the other part, the other words that I'm remembering just from the last couple of weeks was storytelling. I thought that was a great idea. Mirroring, self-guided progressions, and gamifying were kind of my takeaways from the last 3 sessions that we've done. Any of those spark with people, or any others? Unmute yourself and feel free to jump in and share some of the takeaways from the last couple of weeks.
I'll jump in quick, because storytelling, that was using stories, and thanks, Mark. That came right from you. You know, using those stories to help kids with creative movements. You know, telling the story and then they act out the story. The mirroring, and Mark, was that you too? Was it? Hey, I got it right. Yeah. But the mirroring, I thought that, and these are all ones that I'll use whether we're doing 6 feet PE or not, because the mirroring was the idea of allowing for social interaction while distance learning. And it's the idea of Stacy has a basketball and I have a basketball, and I have to dribble a certain way and he has to match it. And I think it was Justin last week that says you could play pig or horse doing that. So those are things I'm, no matter what next year looks like, those are going in. And then the self-guided progressions from Mike, challenge by choice, and I really like those. And then another thing I took away was stations, and how strategically placing stations for wall space and self-guided progressions is going to be key if we have to do the 6 feet PE. So now it's your turn.
Lauren, we missed you last week. Got any memories from a couple weeks ago when you were here?
Yeah, I was just gonna say the storytelling again. I thought that was really cool. I would have to, because I do middle school PE. For those of you that don't know, I would have to find a little bit more interesting stories for my 8th graders, because I don't know if a story would last that long with them. But yeah, and just the poly spots, which I use a lot, and just trying to get their imagination going. So.
Right. How about you, Justin? You've brought a whole bunch of ideas to us. Have you been able to take anything away?
One of the things that I've done in the last week is I've asked for climbing ropes to be donated to the school. So if I need to be outside, I can still grid the grass and not worry about painting or whatever. Because they go through their climbing ropes, I guess, about every 6 months or so, depending on how hard they're climbing. So in the area that we are, there's lots of climbers. Yeah. If I can get lots of their old rope, that would be perfect for marking lines, and it comes in all kinds of different colors. So that's one of the things that I've put in. I've thought about using that even for the 9 square in the air.
Yeah.
Put it on the floor, and we can still do that in the grass outside and make the squares bigger or smaller.
Yeah.
So Mark, I have to ask, you've given me 2 great ideas. Have you been able to take anything away?
Put me on the spot.
Yeah.
I don't know that I have anything at the top of my mind. The thing that I'm taking away from this is having this conversation with all these phys ed people has really buoyed my spirits. I went into this summer thinking, man, you know, I was a little down because of the whole distance learning. Even though I virtually talked to my department, we just talked about the lessons, and it wasn't this kind of discussion about different ideas and stuff. And so for me, it's just taking back that there's a group of people out there that, you know, have the same kind of goal.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
for sure.
It's interesting you say that because Tom Roberts, who's with us the last couple of weeks, he's our MinShape president-elect. And
Okay.
we interviewed him a couple of weeks ago. And one of the things he said is, when we first kind of threw this idea out there of 6 feet PE, he's like, all you got to do is put 15 FIAD teachers in a room and they'll figure it out. And I look back and say, I mean, look what we've accomplished 1 hour a week. It's just that growth mindset, and it just the ideas start coming out. And I really think no matter what challenge they throw at us, whether it's a distance learning, we'll have our hiccups, but eventually we'll figure it out.
Yeah, and I'm also looking forward to, once we all get back, we're going to have even more ideas, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to keeping this going. And like you said, not every week during the summer maybe, but keeping this going.
Yeah. All right.
I think it's been nice just in the aspect that get to talk to PE teachers that care about their jobs. And since I missed 2 of my conferences that I would have been going to here at the end, I would have been in Salt Lake and I would have been in Texas for theirs. So it's nice to interact with other PE teachers.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point, you two, for sure. Jamie, I love what Justin said there at the end. He just reiterated that it is so nice to get with other passionate teachers of your same curriculum, and you're able to just throw ideas around, and it's just a really good thing we're building here, not even intentionally. It's just those are really good people that have been coming on, volunteering their time to be recorded, to throw out their ideas, just for the benefit of our whole PE community. It's just a kind of a cool thing. So
it was a great trip down memory lane, so to speak, and just the idea of hearing what other people have taken away from the first 2 podcasts on hashtag 6 feet PE. But this episode is focusing on standard 2. And standard 2 is our movement concepts, and that's you have your first benchmark, which is space. Second benchmark is pathways. The third one is speed, direction, and force, followed by muscular tension and alignment. And then we've got that fifth benchmark with this, which is strategies and tactics. And what I found fascinating about our standard 2 discussion, which right away, before you turn off or move to a new podcast, talk about standards, is just how it started off slow, and all of a sudden it just picked up momentum. And that's when the ideas started to flow, and the games, and the activities, the adaptations, the differentiation started to come out. And that, especially when we got to that 5th benchmark there, the strategies and the tactics. Yeah.
The first strategies, or the first benchmarks there, it really kind of felt like a review anyway from the past weeks. When you're talking about space, well, we really went over that and spent an hour talking about how do we cover these locomotor skills. Well, you almost can't teach locomotor skills without teaching space, and we talked about the need, especially now with the grids and teaching what is 6 feet, how to keep 6 feet apart. And so it just kind of felt like a lot of those are just built in. You used the term stacking of standards before, where when you're teaching, you're almost always teaching more than one standard, no matter what game we play, no matter what activity, what drill. And so kind of, maybe that's why we were stumbling a little bit. It was kind of going slow. But when we got into that 5th one, the strategies and tactics, it really felt like the handcuffs came off, and we really started rolling there for a while.
Well, yeah, because we talked about offensive and defensive strategies, and we threw it out there for invasion games. Because inherently, when you play an invasion game, you're invading somebody else's space. Well, we've got that criteria where we have to stay 6 feet apart. So now, how can we play an invasion game and still respect social distancing? Yep. What's that going to look like? And it's just amazing, the growth mindset of the group. How right away you can start putting up roadblocks and start coming up with reasons how it's not going to work. Yep. So right, we started to put our heads together and came up with some pretty creative things that I'm going to use. No matter what form of what FIAD looks like next year, I've still got some pretty awesome ideas I'm going to use next year.
Yeah. So let's take a listen to this next segment, and we'll be back.
Yeah, I saw a video of somebody over in England, seen a lot of stuff from over in England, and he has half a class. He only has 8 kids in his class. For him, that's half a class. I could see it working up to maybe 15, but he has a double circle, and he stands in the middle of the circle. Each kid has 2 cones going out from the center, and they did locomotor things from one cone to the other and back, and then they could listen to them, when they were in the center, the closest cone, and then they would go back and out. And so I thought that was an interesting way of doing it.
For sure.
Yeah. And with standard 2, there's only really 2 that come into elementary. The strategies and tactics, and then the movement concepts. The rest of them are like 6th grade and above.
Yeah, let's see. Movement concepts, speed, direction, and force. And then, like you said, movement concepts, the alignment and muscular tension.
Yeah, I'm looking at the standard 2 from Shape America where they have it all nice and gridded out. There's only 2.
Which, listen, I'm glad you highlighted that, because the one thing that I've really that really excited me when we were talking about standard 2, it was grade 5 invasion games. And now, just to challenge your thoughts, is just think of it. What invasion game? Let's just start. Don't even think of 6 feet PE. What invasion games does everybody play? And I'm thinking, I do multi-goal soccer.
Capture the flag.
Capture the flag.
We play chook ball.
Rob the nest. I have large class sizes, so I usually play with groups of 6, and they each have a hula hoop, and then they will try to rob each. It's kind of like capture the flag, but you use multiple. We use gator skin balls, and they will have to send one person out per time to either rob someone's nest or to guard their own nest. So it's pretty much like capture the flag, but we do groups of or teams of 6.
Okay.
How can you guard that? How can you guard your hula hoop?
You could so you can choose if you're going to have somebody play defense or offense, and you're only allowed to send one person out at a time. And so there's strategy, because you want to look at the other people's nests, because usually you can play like the first team to 10. So if your team has a high number of balls, then you might want to play defense that round instead of sending someone out to go grab a ball.
Okay. And as you go out to get, if the defense, how do they defend if they tag?
They're wearing flags, kind of like capture the flag.
Gotcha. And some other people are putting here, it used to be called steal the bacon.
It's similar. I mean, I just have a large group, so I have to come up with games where you can get everybody kind of moving fast in and out.
Good to go. So in invasion games, basically, and correct anybody, feel free to correct me, but invasion game is basically you're invading somebody else's space. Where like a net game has a net between the 2 teams, but an invasion game, and I would say basketball, I would consider almost, we had talked, was an invasion game, because you're invading somebody else's space.
Yeah, chook ball would fall under that one. I think this one that she's talking about, it would be easy to just not have somebody guard, and it's just go get. We've also done it where the middle has a bunch of different things, and we play with like up to 6 to 8 different objects that are in the middle or spread out, and you have to get all 8 different objects to win. So you have to know where to go steal it from, or if you have more than one piece, like if you have 2 orange balls, you have to get rid of one. So somebody could literally bring you stuff that you have to get rid of. And you only have the choice of going and getting or getting rid of every time you go out.
Yeah, I like that variation. That's a good thing.
We play a lot of capture the cone. It's like capture a flag, except for we have multiple cones. Because at the school I work at, every class is double class. That sometimes we have 3 classes, and so it's very crowded. So we have to have more cones so that everybody's moving. But I wonder if we were outside, if we put like multiple lanes, maybe with those climbing ropes or whatever, and to capture, you have to stay in your lane. It would just be a one-way game instead of both directions. And then if there was like a big circle around the cone, if the defender ran, if these are the lanes, if the defender had to go back and forth between lanes, they only had a certain amount. If there was a big circle, if they were in it, maybe you couldn't get the cone. But once they left to stop somebody else, then you could run in and get it. I don't know.
Yeah, I like where this is going, because that is what that standard is. It's offensive and defensive tactics. And just in my simple mind, I can still see the offensive side of the tactics, but now help me with the defense, because it seems like all these games you have to tag somebody, or you have to get within that 6 feet in order to defend your your goal.
What if you
Like
gave
if
them
you
long
had-
noodles?
Ooh.
Yeah, and then the one I was just explaining, if we had a circle a big circle around each cone, this would have to be outside for all the space. If the defender was in there, then the person running down the lane couldn't go in. They'd have to wait until the defender went to a different one to defend. So the defender sees somebody down the lane here, they run over here, then the kid back here could go in and get it. So they still wouldn't be next to each other. I don't know. I just thought that while we were talking, so it's not.
I think it.
So that's how these great ideas start.
Yeah, so the tic-tac-toe I talked about last week would fall under this, where you're trying to create the tic-tac-toe win, but you're throwing a Frisbee to somebody standing in a spot. And if they can't catch it, they have to vacate it and somebody else gets to step into it.
Yeah.
Has anybody here played chook ball? Because that would be perfect, because you're not allowed to interfere.
No, I never heard of it.
So chook ball, you have 2 nets on each end. Unlike basketball, you can score off of either end, and you have a zone, which is about 9 feet from the net, that no one's allowed to play in. So you got to be outside the zone, throw the ball onto the net. It's got to come outside the zone and hit the floor or ground for you to get a point. And anytime you're throwing the ball to a teammate, no one's allowed to interfere with their ability to pass or catch. But if they drop it, it instantly belongs to the other team.
Okay. Yeah.
And so that takes care of that. You have to be within a zone of the person you're with, but you can't interfere with their ability to do anything.
Does that come with special goals, or like the bounce off of?
Yeah, kind of like baseball nets,
Okay.
but they stand up at an angle. They're really
Yeah.
strong and sturdy, and you can really get them. They're called chook ball.
I guess I was thinking that we weren't going to be able to like touch equipment that somebody else did unless it was a jump rope, and then between classes we clean it. Is that not what you guys are getting at your state?
I'm thinking it's going to start to be more of an open, depending on where you are.
Well, hopefully, but yeah, I guess this what I'm watching is kind of cool, but I don't really,
Yeah,
I
if you
didn't
can't
really
do
think we
equipment at
could
all,
do something.
the invasion game is going to be almost impossible to do anyways, because you can't
Yeah.
go steal anything. But you
Yeah.
can't have multiple people.
Yeah, and that's interesting, because one it is to learn some of these invasion games, but the other one is try to stick to our criteria, our guidelines, and just think how can we adapt some of this? Because last week we talked about throwing and catching, and we were stuck. How we're gonna practice throwing? How we're gonna practice catching? And the idea started to come out. Lisa, you want to tell us about Pass the Fat? That name caught my attention.
Sure. It's called Pass the Fat and Muscle Snatchers. You basically play it like Steal the Bacon. I have a big, jump ball circle in the middle of my court. I put a bunch of bean bags and a bunch of poly spots in there, and I don't tell the kids what it is. And I then have, say we could do 4 corners, and you put a hula hoop in each corner, and you divide the kids up, and you have them, they have to go one at a time to the center circle, make sure that they're not running into each other. They have to avoid each other and stuff like that. Pick up whatever they want, take it back, put it in their hula hoop, once they're done, then the next kid goes, and so on and so forth. So you should only have as many hula hoops as you have out. That's as many kids that should be out at one time. And they get it. And then when the center's empty, you take time and say, stop. Let's take a look at what you have in your hula hoop. How many bean bags do you have? How many poly spots do you have? And we talk about body composition. That's where that comes in now. So we talk about the bean bags represent muscles and the poly spots represent fat. So if you have 50 bean bags / poly spots out there, what is an ideal body composition that you should have in your hula hoop? It should be about 8 bean bags to 2 poly spots. And then what you do is you take those poly spots, and now we're going to give the poly spots away, and we're going to steal bean bags out of other people's hula hoops. So it's like a constant motion to try to get the right body composition. And they really, really get a kick out of it, and they really work hard to get rid of those poly spots. And the rule is, if I take or go give away a poly spot, whatever hula hoop I go to, the person behind me cannot go to that hula hoop. They have to go to a different hula hoop, so that we don't have kids going all to the same and picking on the same group. So it's a great way to talk about health and nutrition. And then you can also add in taggers in the game that are protecting the center circle, and they have a red gator ball that could represent alcohol, and then another person has blue, and that represents sugar. And so that the more bad habits you have out there tagging people, the harder it is to go attain, your muscles and stuff like that, and the harder you have to work. It's a really cool game. They really like it.
And that's really interesting. And just to adapt it, because we can't share equipment, we can't grab stuff. So what if we had different colored bean bags for everything, and instead of picking them up, you have to drag them with your feet, or you have to kick them. And the taggers, now they have a 6-foot pool noodle. So
yes.
we can still try to keep some of that distance.
Pool noodle instead, yes.
And still, muscles is red, and the fat is yellow bean bags. Sugar is blue.
Yeah, and you can do smoking. You can do all kinds of things.
Don't say donuts.
A white ball, like a cream colored ball, is bad habit of smoking. And the more we have out there, the harder it is to exercise and to get our stuff, and the harder we have to work. So, and then you pull those kids away, and it's easier then to get the muscle and stuff like that, and it's easier to get rid of the fat. So they really catch on to it. I do that kindergarten through 6th grade. They really, really like that game a lot.
It reminds me of a game we do. Usually it's with these big balls that float through the air easy. Risk Factor Foursquare. You guys know that one? Yeah. So the gym's divided in 4 areas. We just use caution tape on cones, and the balls fly through the air. And normally, you divide the class into 4. Well, we do in 5. One group is running to get rid of their risk factors because they had too many. So we turn the music on. The balls are floating through the air, and you don't want them in your quadrant. So when it comes, you hit it away. When we see 4, because there's 5, when we see 4 in one quadrant, we turn the music off. Whoever has the most risk factors, they leave and they go for a run around the gym, the outside, while the others are playing. But I wonder if you could do the same thing, except for with kicking a ball, and you just try to keep them in other people's quadrants, and then each quadrant would have to be have lines down so that kids don't get too close to each other. So zones, I guess. Each quadrant would have zones. Try to keep them in the other quadrants, because they would be risk factors. And then we tell them, the risk factors. We go over heart disease, smoking, poor nutrition, blah, 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 blah. So.
Do you use beach balls for that then, or what kind of balls?
You probably could. I found these ones on what's it called? I can't remember what they're called, but they're more like, they feel more like balloons, I guess, and they float.
Ball. Somebody put it in the comments.
Oh,
Yeah, that's not what they were called. But yeah, they just float and they don't hurt when they get, you get hit in the face. It's kind of shocking,
right.
but it doesn't hurt. Yeah.
One of the things that was going to bring up when we were talking about like capture the flag, we've used yarn balls. We have a whole bunch of them. And so I can fill 2 buckets and each kid carries 2 yarn balls. So instead of getting close and tagging, they use a throwing motion and throw yarn balls at each other. And if you get hit, you have to drop your yarn balls. So if you're playing defense, you have to drop your yarn balls and go get others, which frees up the offense to go steal the flag or whatever that is. So that helps with the distancing. I don't know exactly how to get around more than one person touching a flag or whatever the goal is, but at least that helps. It's an idea for a tag type of situation where you can still stay distance and still do at least part of the game. I'm trying to get around the other part where we're all going after the same flag. Any ideas how to get around that?
I don't know if this directly goes to it, and again, I don't think we'll be able to do this one, but I do a game when we talk about offense, defense to start out, where the one team there's like, I guess 4 or 5 different small balls, and they can throw it to anybody on their team, and then the other team has pool noodles, and they go to try to tag the person with any of the people with the balls, and so they're running, and they keep having, and then if they get tired, they can pass their pool noodle to somebody else on the defensive team, and it kind of goes with covering. So I don't know if they could do something like that.
Yeah. Well, Jamie, the title Invasion Games does not seem possible when it comes to 6 feet PE, but the ideas started rolling and we kind of covered it. And when we were talking off air a little bit, you kind of mentioned a couple things that you kind of grasped or you pulled out of that discussion about invasion games in general. Would you mind restating that for people?
Yeah, and I think, it just came to me here, but thinking back, the first thing we talked about and we came to a conclusion to was when we create invasion games, we're trying to minimize the contact and minimize the opportunities that students come into contact with each other, handle equipment. So you probably wouldn't start the year with an invasion game. We'd start the year with those locomotor skills or those activities that were learning space, learning boundaries, moving in space, and those sort of things. But then we got to the heart of the invasion games, after we've become successful with staying in our spaces. And it's just some of the things that came up was like using pool noodles to create distance when you're trying to tag somebody, and using manipulatives or your feet to take something from somebody else's area, coming up with some of those offensive strategies to, invade somebody's space by going and getting a beanbag with a hockey stick or with your feet or what have you. And then the idea of occupy. So I'm holding this space here so somebody else can't use it. And you got to find ways to lure me out of that space so that you can come and occupy the space. So that's where the offensive and defensive strategies came into invasion games.
Yeah, I really like that. Just when we're creating, and that's what we have to do as PE teachers. Sometimes we borrow and steal games, but sometimes we have to make them up. And just with that idea of invading is not to invade to capture somebody. The idea is to invade a space, and then once you're in that space, that's yours, and you've got it occupied. And it's just a mental switch in your head, and then off of that, the ideas start to pour, just like they did for the group there, for sure. Then we went on to standard number 3, and you want to give the title and kind of a general overview of standard number 3 before we play the next clip.
Yeah, standard 3 is all on our fitness knowledge. Our fitness knowledge, our nutrition, and our understanding of the assessments. So this really kind of lends its way back to the stacking standards of things we already do, and now we start incorporating some of the fitness and the fitness knowledge, the fitness components, the fit principle, and potentially some of that nutrition stuff as well.
Yeah. So this next segment, it was kind of interesting. The ball kind of got rolling, so to speak. We were talking about activities and adding nutrition and nutrition knowledge to it. So that's the first games that are explained kind of go that direction. And so take a quick listen to that.
So one area just in my curriculum that I know I lack and I need more. I need more activities. I just need more is nutrition. So I just throw it out there. If anybody has, I'd like to hear what nutrition activities you do in a regular gym setting, and then maybe we can start brainstorming some ways to adapt them to meet our criteria. But I mean, first I just want to hear what those activities are, because that's something I lack in.
I like the this or that activities that you can get online or make through PowerPoints.
Yep.
So you can give them choices of activities or choices of foods or choices of different things, and they have to give you an answer. And a lot of times we use body forms to give the answer. So you put up two choices up on the board, and they decide which one is the correct answer. And they have to either do jumping jacks or do a pose or do something that it instantly tells you what their answer is. And then you can talk about what's the right answer or why they got it right or why they got it wrong for the different, what's appropriate size for a piece of meat you should be eating. And you can give them, an 8 ounce, a 6 ounce, and then they have to tell you the answer. I kind of like those.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those would render space
simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I have fitness food deck cards. I think they're in them. But you can all debate down by grains and fruits and all of those things, and you just pick out a card and ask the kids questions by whatever you want to do with. We do it by the Scholastic, where they roll the dice and they do the activity. I have each spot color-coded by grains or fruits or vegetables or whatever, and they have to pull a card and ask their group what the correct answer is.
Okay.
I use those cards too. I just mix them all up, and then on one side of the gym I put some frisbees, and then I put some cards in each frisbee, different food groups, and then they're on scooters. And what I did before now, but they were like in groups, just a relay thing, and they'd scoot down, grab one food, scoot back, and then they'd have to figure out on the other side which food group it was and put it in the right pile, so they'd make their own piles. And then at the end we'd see how many foods did you get, and then were they in the right piles. Something kind of simple. And one more little food thing I did for littles is just a tag game. Like if you got tagged before somebody could unfreeze you, you both had to tell each other a different healthy food. So we'd go over healthy foods or a healthy snack, sorry. So we just say like berries or fruits and vegetables and things.
Yeah.
So one of the ones we use for the bones and muscles is we have a big skeleton that we'll put up in the gym. And I have like 23 buckets, I think it is, one for each bone. And the kids are given the 23 different bones in their group. And they pick up one and they have to run it down, and they're color coded so I know which bone name goes with what group. And they have to put it in the right bucket. And on the wall at the end is the big skeleton with numbers next to the bones. And so if I pick up the tibia, I have to run down and look at the skeleton and see what number goes with the tibia, and then go put that in the correct bucket and run back. And then the next kid runs up, and if they don't know the answer, they run back with it, put it back in their group, and somebody else can pick it up and run it. And so then it's a relay. But again, it's that touching thing.
And I was just thinking of that, Justin, but I was also thinking the structures we're going to have in place anyway. They're going to be cleaning their stuff. So I was just thinking in my head that, they could grab, assuming everything's already clean in the bucket, they go grab that one item, go take it down there, and maybe they can't bring it back. But then the next person goes, and once they have their skeleton, then, your squad leaders that day or whoever's on your cleanup crew, then they can go and clean all the pieces and put them back in the bucket for the next group. You definitely lose a lot of time there in the transitions, but I think that's a norm we're going to have to get used to, especially to start with, until we develop the routines and the structures to do that cleaning.
I do a skeleton relay too, but mine are, and I'm not going to be able to probably do it this year because I only have 6 different skeletons made out. I just took a skeleton form and shrunk it down and then cut it out. And then I laminated the pieces. So the kids do like a skeleton relay where they go down, try to make a hoop in the basket. And if they make it, then they get a piece to the puzzle and bring it back. And then they have to anatomically correctly put the skeleton together with a thing that I had put together for them to see where the pieces are with the names and how they should go. And we talk about, you know, hand positioning, them being correctly in the right spots. You know, it's funny, they'll put leg bones up at the top and they'll have really long arms and stuff. And you have to remind them, no, that's leg bone, that's big bone. Where's that bone go? And they're like, oh, it goes down below. But I guess this year I'm not gonna be able to use that because I don't have numerous sets of these skeletons made out.
Well, what
I
if
don't know how I would clean them. They're laminated, you know.
What if we had a picture, like Justin's got there, have a picture of a skeleton, and the kids, you know, I would assume they would have their crayons in their class. So they bring their crayons to class, and they're again, they're drawing cards. But as I say, they draw a card, they see what it is, they just run down and cut and quick color in the tibia. But
somebody made a suggestion in our county, you know, when and if you have classes, you know, like your first period, you use one set of equipment and that's the equipment you use with that group and you put it to the side, and then you do a different activity with the next group, put it aside, the next group, a different activity, put it aside, and then at the end of the day, you just wash all the equipment, or those kids are the ones that are coming back the next day. We don't know what we're doing yet in our county. So we might be every other day. We might be half the students one day, half the students the next day. They don't know. They're going to decide that tomorrow. So, but there's lots of different things. People are talking about numbering all their equipment. Like if I'm doing racket sports for my first class, every piece of equipment is numbered, and I come in and I number 1, just like I am in my squad spot. That's the equipment I use and only use. Same with the balls, same with whatever, lots of individual activities, like lots of self-catch, self-toss, go to a wall, self-toss, self-catch, you know, because I'm in an area that's being hit really bad with the coronavirus. So there's lots of talk as to, you know, they're even talking about leaving our kids in the classroom and having us teach virtually. So I'm in school, but I'm not teaching the kids in front of me, that they'll sit in the classroom and take instruction from me via classroom television. So kind of up in the air. I don't know about you all, but I worked 10,000 times harder this year than I ever have.
I have a prior commitment. I promised him we would go for to the trail, and he doesn't like mosquitoes. It's earlier here. But I love this group. I will definitely plan to be back next time you have it, and I'll try to bring my teaching partner with me also.
Oh, that'd be fabulous.
So,
well, thanks.
okay, thanks.
Thanks for all you shared.
bring your neighbors too if you want.
Yeah.
Okay, good ideas I got. Bye.
Thanks.
I do a game called Fitness Tag. Do you guys do that at all? It's more of a tag game, well, you have to elude and evade, I guess, because you don't want to be tagged, but you give each kid, there's like, you could have 5 or 6 taggers depending upon how many kids you have. Purple ball has, when you get tagged by a purple ball, they do push-ups. When you get tagged by a blue ball, you do burpees. When you get tagged by a green ball, you have to do mountain climbers.
Yeah.
When you get tagged by a red ball, you have to run. And they do that exercise on the outside of the gymnasium floor. You know, we use basic basketball floor lines, and they have to stay on their feet, and they can't run out of bounds. If they run out of bounds, then they have to do the exercise that they're being tagged by.
Okay.
And
yeah.
Once they've done that stuff, they can then come back in the game. So you could use pool noodles instead. Just make them, you know, different colors.
Yeah.
We play color tag, which is with the pool noodles. But every kid, well, 80% of the class is given 2 pool noodles of different colors. And then you have a couple of kids that only have 1. And the object of the game is to play as long as you can and only have 1 or 0 pool noodles. So if you have 2 pool noodles, you're in trouble. But you can only tag certain people by what color pool noodle you have. So like if you have a blue pool noodle, you can only tag red. But red can only tag green. Green can only tag blue or purple, or depends on how many colors you have. And so if you have 2 pool noodles, you have to know what 2 colors you have and what colors you can go tag somebody. And if you already have 2, you're not worried about getting tagged by anybody because you can only hold 2. But if you have 1, you have to worry about somebody that could tag you. And if you have no pool noodles, anybody can tag you.
Do you think we'll be able to play tag with pool noodles?
I think it's going to go right back to equipment. I mean, if you can or you can't.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like
some of us will, some of us won't.
Yeah, the yarn balls or whatever. But at least with that one, you can use space.
Yeah.
That could be like the first phase. Like once we are allowed to use it, use a little bit of it, and then go back to use a little bit more.
Yeah. I like that one because everybody has to be playing and they constantly have to think about what colors they have and who they're worried about tagging them. Because you got to think about multiple things all at one time. You have to think about what color do I have and who can I tag? But at the same time, what color do I have and who can tag me?
Have any of you used the focused fitness curriculum by any chance? That has tons of nutrition. All those games I talked about is in that curriculum, and it's fabulous. There's tons of stuff in there. If you can, I don't know if you can find it online. I'm sure somebody's put stuff out there. Fairfax County has it on their website.
What is it called again?
It's called Focused Fitness 5 for the Life Program Basic. It's a really good program.
Looks like John's on the ball here. He put the link in the chat for everybody here. Thanks, John.
There you go.
And
cool.
Through, I think sometime in July, they have it where you can contact them and they have about 4 or 5 modules that they'll turn on for you to look at.
Would you recommend it, Justin, after you've had it?
We've actually put into our district to add a couple of the free modules that they put out. One of them is behavior logs. And so the kids can go in and you can have exercise, nutrition, all kinds of different things that you can assign that the kids have to fill out for you. And it gives you some good data back.
Okay.
And they have a video log where you can assign the kids to watch a certain video or skill or nutrition. And it tells you, you can give them a test or a quiz on what they were supposed to have learned, but it'll tell you how much of the video they actually turned on and ran through.
Okay. Cool.
That's interesting. We never had any video with ours. We just had the curriculum and that was it. But there was lots of student assessments and things like that. It's really great. It gives you the student assessment and the answers and everything.
We have the fitness, wearables, and a couple more. I can't remember, but we use those off and on. I use the wearables all the time because when we use our Polar heart rate monitors in class, it downloads into Polar. Focus Fitness goes into Polar and pulls the data out, and then the parents can go straight into Focus Fitness and have access to everything you've put in under their kid. So they can look at their heart rate monitor data, they can look at their fitness data, they can look at everything.
Well,
so the PE specialist is fabulous. If you ever get a chance to look at his stuff, he's phenomenal. He has so much stuff, and he's doing a lot to talk about COVID, to try to figure out. He gets ahead of us and tries to figure it out before we all have to figure it out, which is great.
Is that Ben Landers?
Yeah. Yep. He's fabulous.
Told Jamie I was a little bit nervous. I didn't know how this discussion would go with this standard number 2 being kind of a review of a lot of what we did. But man, you guys just started rolling with the ideas. And between the podcast and in the chat and on the Google Docs notes, I think there's a ton of ideas for not only us, but to share out to the rest of the community. You guys rocked this today. Well, Jamie, I thought that was a great clip. It was just interesting at first how the ideas about nutrition just kind of rolled. And it seems like all FIAD teachers have their games that teach nutrition in different ways, or the body and health and that kind of thing. And I think there's going to be a lot more of those games that come out come August. And so if you keep your eye on Twitter, and even back here on the podcast, I got a feeling there's going to be a whole bunch more of those games coming out. And the resources that were mentioned at the end, I believe it was by Lisa, she mentioned a couple there. I think that's pretty cool that not only she mentioned those 2 here, but keep your eye out. I think there's going to be a ton of resources for us. And we're not alone. I think you've said this several times on different podcasts, Jamie. We're not alone in this. And that's the beautiful part of having this big community worldwide. We're going to be able to tap all these resources.
You know, and one of those resources is our standards.
Yeah.
And it can be a bit overwhelming. You know, K through 5, I believe there's 238 benchmarks that we are required to teach to. And it's how do we do it? How do we do it? And it comes down to stacking standards. And when you do an activity, you know, how many standards are you hitting right there? And I think this episode alone really kind of highlighted how that can still be done, or is especially going to be done with hashtag 6 feet PE. You know, you start with a locomotor skill that you're naturally, because we're trying to keep 6 feet apart, we're going to be teaching those kids how to move in space safely and tie some nutrition to that activity. And you just knocked out 3 benchmarks with that one game right there.
Yeah, you're right on.
So, and another great part of this episode was just a discussion with the invasion games. And inherently, when you talk invasion games, how do you respect social distance when you're trying to invade somebody's space? And I just thought some great ideas and some great concepts came up, but it is going to take us to be pretty creative with how we develop those games and activities that we're so used to allow students to apply those offensive and defensive strategies.
That's for sure. And that brings us back to those 3 C's. We're talking about on almost all of our episodes, we're talking about having to be creative to add this content. But one of the things that is a catch for me, and I don't know if other teachers get into this, but I really get into the content sometimes, and I develop wonderful games, and I develop a really good system. And before long, I've forgotten the number 1 C, which was that building that relationship, building that connection to kids. And I just kind of, for whatever reason, felt I wanted to highlight that again, saying those 3 C's starts with that connection. We can't get so focused on working so hard on keeping kids 6 feet apart that we forget to build the relationship and the connection with the students. And for that matter, helping the students connect with each other. I still think when we're formulating our content, we need to have that as a top priority.
And that was Thinking PE.